Boro made it back-to-back wins for only the third time this season at the weekend. Question is, can we win our third game in a row for only the second time this season? What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Project Boro Preview Show, and another episode where we, of course, delve deep into Boro's upcoming fixture, looking at the opposition, previewing the game, predicting the lineups, and all that good stuff. And this weekend, we're, of course, looking ahead to a trip all the way down to South Wales, to Swansea. It's a long old trip for the Boro, a trip that's been relatively fruitful over the last couple of years, I've got to be honest, but it's one that Boro must not take lightly, despite us being in a good run of form and turning and that rot around and getting back to winning ways. And Carrick maybe just about saving his job by the skin of his teeth. We are now back in the right direction, but we've got to make sure we continue to go in the right direction. We want to keep this run going. We want to at least keep an unbeaten run going. And if you go away from home in this league and you can't win the game, then certainly make sure you don't lose it, and it just keeps the positive vibe around the club going. And any sort of good result away from home would be massive for Boro, because our away form's been pretty dire of late up until the Stoke game, of course. As before that, we were conceding goals for fun and really, really struggling. And Swansea, despite being a side who have maybe underachieved a bit this season, aren't doing quite as well. Just sacked the manager. Of course, it's still a game Boro cannot take lightly at all, because for as good as it is that we've got 2 wins in a row, and I fully expect that in our position beating anybody was a positive, and you can only beat what's in front of you. Stoke were poor, Derby were very poor. Swansea, I don't think in their own backyard will be anywhere near as bad as either of the 2 teams we've just beaten, so they'll raise their game. They'll be a tougher test than what the previous 2 sides have been. Therefore, Boro have to raise their game as well to get a result. So, big game for Boro, but also a big game for Swansea and their new manager, Alan Sheehan, who is, I believe, in caretaker charge for now. He's had a relatively positive start, though, to his time as Swansea boss. I'm going to be honest. He's been in charge for 2 games since Luke Williams was sacked on the 17th of February. He's got a 3-0 win at home to Blackburn, and he's just come off the back of a 0-0 draw away at Preston. So a win and a draw, no goals conceded. Not a bad start to his interim spell. Where that leaves Swansea at this moment, they're currently 16th in the Championship, and they are pretty much as mid-table as it gets. They've won 11, drew 8, lost 16 games, scoring 37 goals, conceding 46. They're just as close to the bottom 3 as they are the playoffs. Pretty much 10 points from the bottom 3, 11 off the top 6. They seem like a side who are too good to go down, but won't be good enough to get any sort of involvement in the playoff scrap this season. It'll all be about, I think, getting the right appointment in place to get a good manager in, end the season strong, and very much just go again next season for the Swansea side. So maybe they're in that awkward position where they either don't have anything to play for, therefore they might be a little more relaxed. It could be better for Boro, but then again, when you're playing a side who've got nothing to play for, they can sometimes be so relaxed, playing with no pressure, they can play with freedom, and it's actually more difficult for Boro. So it depends which way the narrative spins on that one. Prior, though, to the sacking of Luke Williams, they were on a terrible run of form, losing 7 of their last 9 before he was relieved of his duties. And as I mentioned, since then, Alan Sheehan has come in and gotten somewhat of a new manager bounce, I would say that. So a solid side, Swansea. And I guess one who, as we've seen at times this season when I've rounded up the Championship, they can beat teams around them, they can beat teams beneath them. They sort of then fall apart when they play the top teams, and I'm not quite sure where Boro fall in them brackets that I've just mentioned there. As for their home form, though, given the fact Boro will be going all the way down to the Swansea.com stadium, their home form's not exactly glowing either. As I mentioned in the last time we did a preview away from home and we played Stoke, they look pretty bad at home because they're so far down in the home league table, when in essence they're only 6 points off Boro in terms of our home record, and they've played a home game less. It's actually quite tight, the home league table this season. Other than Hull, who are very much cut adrift, there's not much splitting most sides at home. They're all sort of doing okay. It's only when you get towards the top end of the table you start to see sides who are just very, very good at home. So although Swansea, They've won the same number of games as they have at home. They've won 6, lost 6. Okay, I guess when you want to be stronger at home, that means they have been poor at home. I mean, I say Boro have been poor at home this season and we're 12th. So Swansea being 20th, I guess there's no way of dressing it up, even with a positive goal difference. They've been disappointing at home, I would say. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, their last home game was a 3-0 win over Blackburn. Rovers, taking a deeper look then into Swansea's numbers and them as both an attacking side and a defensive side. They're pretty average, I would say, going forward. They sit 16th for goals scored, so it's exactly where you'd sort of expect them to be, similar to their league position. They're not one of the worst, but they're not quite in mid-table. They've scored 37 goals thus far this season, so not an attack to be too worried about, I would say. And then their XG, though, is a little bit interesting because even though they're 16th for goals scored, they're actually 11th for XG. They're mid-table and they're actually quite a big underperformer in front of goal at this moment in time because their XG has them at an expected goals of 44, yet they've only scored 37. So I get the impression Swansea are a side that aren't too bad at creating chances, but they struggle to finish them off, and maybe their centre-forwards have been underperforming and they've been a little bit poor in front of goal throughout the season, and you can kind of back that up with some of their other numbers as well in and around the attacking areas of the pitch because they're 6th for big chances. They're a playoff side when it comes to the number of big chances they've created in the league this season. They're also in the top 8 for big chances missed, so they do create big moments in games, chances that would be perceived as really big goal-scoring ones, which probably leans into why their XG is mid-table. However, their shots on target is 17th. So I don't know if you can put 2 and 2 together there and maybe see that they get into good positions, could score a lot more often than what they do, and maybe they just miss the target with more shots than what they should in games. So I think they're a team that might create, and I think it's up to Boro to ensure they don't. But if they do get their chances, we need to hope we don't both gift them any, and if they get into good areas, they might, as they have been all season, underperform in front of goal and maybe scuff the chances. So a mid-table attack, I would say, in terms of creativity, a slightly worse one in terms of finishing. And their defence, it's a bit about the same, really. They're sort of mid-table, and their defence is a lot more representative of where they should be. They're 13th in the Championship for their defence. They've got an identical defence to Boro. We've both conceded exactly the same number of goals. We've both conceded 46 goals this season. And unlike their XG going forwards, Swansea's XG against is bang on. It marries almost exactly with the goal or the quality of chances they have conceded this season. So they're not really underperforming. The goals they've let in are the number of goals they should have let in, which has them as the 8th highest for XG against in the league. So they concede the 8th most big chances in games and pretty much have the 8th, 9th worst defence as well. So they are in the bottom half for defensive numbers. So that could definitely help Boro out in terms of us getting opportunities and creating against this Swansea side. So very much mid-table in all aspects, you could say. Maybe a little bit lower. They're exactly where they should be, basically, in the league table. As for their team, though, you can only really base it off of Alan Sheehan's first 2 games in charge since he's come in to the team. And there's no surprise that he's played exactly the same 11 in both of his games so far. So there's a likelihood we'll be seeing exactly the same team unless there's any injuries or suspensions that I'm not aware of. But he's been playing in a 4-2-3-1. Vigoro has been in goal. They've had a solid back 4 of Key, Cabango, Darling and Timon on the left-hand side. A midfield 2 of Franco and a certain Lewis O'Brien, who many Boro fans will remember from his loan spell here last season. They've got Ronald on the right with Josh Cullen at the 10. Pert Harris is on the left with Vopotnik up front. Now, there are some pretty decent players in that team, some recognisable names who do stand out in certain areas. Josh Cullen is their top goal scorer in the 10. He's the only one of their forwards who has hit double figures this season. He's got 10 goals and 1 assist so far. There's a bit of a drop-off from there on into the next highest goal scorer with Jan Vopotnik, who's only got 5. He was a signing, I remember, at the start of the season when I last did a preview on a Boro Swansea game, which was, of course, the opening day. They'd just signed Vopotnik, and there was a lot of hype around his signing at the time, so I can't speak for Swansea, but I'd imagine a goal return of only 5 is a little bit disappointing from their point of view. But there's a big drop-off behind Liam Cullen when it comes to goals scored. Vopopnik's got 5, then you're looking at Florian Bianchi, who's only got 3. So not too many out-and-out goal threats in the team, I would say. In terms of their assists, though, you can see where they come from. They come from down the sides. Their fullbacks and their wingers, their attacking wingers. And it marries up a little bit with some of their attacking stats. They're really high in the league for accurate passes, Swansea, and they're also right up there in the top 4 for accurate crosses. So it wouldn't surprise me, and again, this could be more reflective of earlier times in the season under Luke Williams. Maybe Sheehan has changed the way they play, and they won't be adopting this sort of style in this game, and maybe he wants to take them in a new direction. But their numbers so far this season have them as a very good passing and a very good crossing team, and that's backed up by their assists. Ronald has the most assists with 6. You've then got Josh Tymon with 4, and Miles Peart-Harris with 4 as well. So you've basically got their right winger, their left winger, and their left back as 3 of their most creative players. So Boro have got to be very, very wary of allowing these guys down the sides with crosses going in to the box. So whoever's playing at right back, whoever's playing at full back on both sides for Boro has got to be incredibly diligent to try and stop these creative players from getting the ball into the box. To the like of Vopopnik and most likely Josh Cullen, who must roam around and pick up second balls and be a bit of a poacher in and around the box, arriving late and scoring goals in that sort of way. So when I get to the Boro team, you'll see which of our fullbacks might have to be on their guard massively at the weekend. Other than the wide players, though, as I say, there's some notable players in and around their team. Franco's a player I've really liked. He's a player who I wouldn't mind at Boro, to be honest. He's got really, really good attributes. I mentioned Lewis O'Brien. He's a player Boro fans know a lot about. He's just joined them on loan. He was, of course, in America, to which he followed after his move from Boro. So O'Brien's jumping, seemingly, from the US back to the UK, back to the US again, finds himself in Wales at this moment in time, and then they've got a pretty solid back 4. And when you look at the FootMob ratings for the Swansea players and the players who've got the highest ratings on FootMob and have performed, I guess, the best according to FootMob, their 2 centre-halves are their 2 strongest performers with the highest average ratings. The other player was Matt Grimes, who of course would be in midfield but has left for Coventry. So that's the Swansea team. A good team, a solid team with some pretty good championship players in there for me. As I say, looking at just their strengths and where a lot of their joy comes from, it is going to be down the sides, and that's what Boro have got to be incredibly careful of. As for the Boro team, for me, you continue to not change a winning team unless you absolutely have to, and unfortunately, the changes are going to have to be in Boro's backline, which just gets weaker and weaker by the week at the moment because we just keep getting injuries. I thought we were down to the bare bones prior to the Derby game, but now we're even more down to the bare bones. What's even below the bones? Is it the nerves? I don't even know what we're down to at this point. But, the front 6 is pretty set. We'll start there. I'll go about it a different way. So obviously Conway up front. Azaz and Whittaker have worked really well, both on the left and in the middle, sort of working together and roaming around. I'd start Force again on the right. Really liked what he's offered in the last few games. Hackney and Morris picked themselves, of course, but it's the defence where we are extremely exposed at the moment. So Travers, of course, will be in goal, but then you're looking at what the hell happens in centre of defence. Dale Fry is the only fit centre-half we have. Luke Ayling went off, of course, in the last game, jarred his ankle. I'm not too sure. Maybe we'll find out on Thursday in Carrick's press conference if that's as serious as it seemed. He might just be back in the team at the weekend, so I don't quite know if Ayling will be fit enough or not, but it sounds like Rav and Edmondson won't be. They'll be a few weeks away. So we might have to start the defence that finished the Derby game, which, you know what, I say it wasn't ideal, but Neto Borges did quite well there. Of course, Derby were not a great attacking side at all, so I don't think it's fair to judge this defence yet because I wouldn't say they've been tested, but you've got to say the only option is that Borges is in at centre-back alongside Dale Fry, with Giles coming in at left-back and Dykesdale being on the right-hand side. That's all we can do right now, and I guess Borges offers us good balance with him being a left-footer. At left centre-half, it might help complement Giles playing the ball into him down that left-hand side, and he did well, Borges, and he's in good form, so I say it could be worse. I mean, can it? We've got barely any players there. But I guess, they did okay against Derby. We'll see how they go against Swansea. But I wouldn't change any other area of the team. And quite honestly, that centre-back partnership, that back five, I think is all we can do at this moment in time, unless there's any shock returns prior to the weekend, which we might find out in Carrick's press conference. As for the head-to-head then, Boro actually have a very, very good head-to-head record with Swansea in recent times. Now, overall, it's pretty even. 8 wins for Boro, 7 for Swansea, 3 draws. So overall, it's been pretty solid, but recent history has been completely dominated by Boro. We've won 6 of our last 7 meetings with Swansea. 6 from 7. The only other was a draw in April of 2022 down at Swansea, but we've had a fantastic record against them, and we've actually won all of our last 5 games against them, including 3 at home and 2 at Swansea. So we've won our last 2 visits down there as well by 3-1 and 2-1. So Boro have had a fantastic record against Swansea, and we're a bit of a bogey team of theirs. So I'm hoping that trend can continue this weekend, leaving me with, of course, my prediction. Now, it will be tough. I'm not going to get too carried away still with Boro at the moment. We've won 2 games in a row, and they were against opposition we should be beating. And to be fair, we probably should be beating Swansea as well. But down at their place, as I say, they've just beaten a team in Blackburn 3-0 at home who were above us in the league. So we've got to be incredibly wary, and they've got some pretty good players who on their day can harm Boro. So we are going to have to take a step forward. We are going to have to improve in our performance levels across the board to get a result here. But if we could, it would only be the second time this season we have recorded 3 wins in a row. And as I mentioned in a video I did yesterday, this next spell of games is crucial for Boro to simply pick up as many points as humanly possible. So I'm going to bank on Boro improving, getting better, developing, getting back into stride, and hopefully taking another step back towards the top 6 and keeping our good record against Swansea intact. I'm going to go with a Boro win, Swansea 1, Boro 2. But other than that, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. Whether you're a Boro fan, Swansea fan, or neutral, let me know your thoughts in the comments, your preview, predictions, lineups, etc. And of course, if you've enjoyed the video, do hit a like on the video and subscribe for much more as we preview and review every Boro game here on the channel. And if you want to check out this video over on your chosen podcast provider and listen to these on the go, there are links in the description for you guys to do exactly that. But until next time, I'll be back on Saturday night or Sunday. We'll see how things go to see what on earth happens down at the Swansea.com stadium, and if Boro can come away with their 3rd win in a row. Or will the brief jolt of life that Boro's season has had, the defibrillator has shocked us back into life, will it only be a flash in the pan? It's a big game. I'll see you all in the next one.